Hey, my name's Meredith, and welcome to this little ink mess. I want to just apologize real quick. I'm very tired at the moment, so this is going to be a little bit more chill, probably, than what some of my other voiceover stuff will probably be, so hope you don't mind. Cheeky little side face there, because obviously I had to blur out the tatas. Although it does seem kind of silly since, you know, a lot of us, no matter what age we are, if we are women, we have boobs. So we see ourselves in the mirror. So it's not like you're not gonna see boobs. Anyway, it's just, it seems really silly to me. But I decided to go ahead and play the game for now and blur it out, whatever. I think she's still there in her glory, hanging from her silks. This was just from a drawing that this is an ink over a drawing that I did that was based off of a figure drawing, or a figure study, excuse me, that was just really cool. And I was like, oh, let's get that. So I did. And I liked how it turned out, and I spent some time shading it and making it look neat, and I really like the shading, but you end up losing that when you ink, so it gets lost in the translation into inking. But you end up with like a different animal, you know, once you ink something. It's just a whole different thing. Yeah, I really like how it went, and it was very relaxing, both to draw originally and then also to ink. It was a lot of fun. The proportions, I think I got goofed up a bit on that front leg. I mean, it looks kind of weird from this angle anyway because the camera's slightly tilted, but yeah, it wasn't quite right, but I don't grid or anything when I do figure studies anymore. I just, try to work with the shape of the figure or the gesture itself. And for anybody who doesn't know, when you do gesture drawings and you're practicing gesture drawings, you're just trying to get the flow of the gesture of the body and or animal, or whatever it is that you're drawing. You're not really trying to do it perfectly. Like, it's not supposed to be a carbon copy of, like, that's not the goal. It's not supposed to look exactly like what you're drawing from. The idea is instead to get the energy of what you're drawing, so the motion or the tension, so on and so forth. And then, of course, every artist inevitably ends up putting their own spin on it, their little, extra things here and there, like adding creases where maybe there weren't creases, or adding a little flare to a corner where, there maybe wasn't a flare in the original image, but there was the energy of that flare, if that makes sense. I'm trying to think of somewhere on here where I did that. I think I did that with the, this whole chest area, like the bend in where the butt is, and then where it comes down into the rib cage, and I just kind of accentuated it just a little bit more maybe than the original picture, but not too much. I mean, she was very flexed, the woman that was posing in the original image. So I don't think I exaggerated it a whole lot, actually. But I definitely add a little bit of my own, spirit or flair, or whatever you want to call it, to each image. Usually by accident. Like, you don't really realize that you're doing it. It's not like I set out with the intense purpose of sitting here and analyzing something and then being like, okay, how am I gonna make this mine? Like, no. Usually it's, you sit down and you just kind of observe the image or the figure for a minute or two, and you find something in it that makes you feel good. At least that's how it works for me. So, I saw this image and immediately I was like, ooh, silks, I love silks. Love watching people dance on using silks and stuff and do acrobatic things. But sorry, lost my train of thought. That's what happens when you're a little too tired and trying to do a voiceover. But whatever, we're all in this together on this little ride. I'm just figuring this out as I go, so I hope you can work with me. But anyway, what were we talking about? Oh, process, right? Yeah. So process is important as far as like it's good to figure out what you want your process to be, but it's also important to kind of forget your process sometimes and try new things. And sometimes I'll watch somebody's video on YouTube and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I never thought of approaching doing a drawing like that, or drawing this particular part of the body that way, or whatever. And that's kind of cool. And so then you're like, well, all right, let me just try, throwing everything to the wind and giving it a shot this other way. And sometimes you try it and you're like, oh, I really like everything about this, and this might be my new process. And then usually you're like, oh, this was interesting, as a practice, and maybe I'll take a couple things from this. But usually you just you suck terribly at it. And you're like, oh, this didn't work for me at all. And you're like, I'm gonna go back to my old process because this was weird and didn't feel right. And the reason it doesn't feel right is because it's not your process. It's not comfortable with you. That person came to that process through series of mistakes, essentially, and you haven't made those mistakes, so the comfort of the whatever that process is doesn't feel right yet. However, the nice thing is that then when you go back to your process, you're like, why was I doing this dumb thing before that was a big waste of time? Or why didn't I think of, looking at a hand this way before and trying this out or whatever? And you're like, oh, I guess maybe I did like some things about that person's, style or process that was actually really helpful to me. And you can't see it right away sometimes, especially if you're working at, copying someone else's style or process. Copying is really important, I think. Everyone does it. Every artist has done it, or nearly every artist has done it forever, since the beginning of time. That's just how you learn, or how many people learn, is by watching, or copying from other people's designs and studies, and figuring out what it is you like and don't like, and a lot of it is just helping yourself put pen to paper and getting used to the feeling of it, if that makes sense. It's not necessarily like usually you shouldn't be looking to actually copy the person's style. Like, that's not the point. The point is to use that person's efforts to then force yourself to analyze your process and your style. But there's nothing wrong with wanting to like emulate somebody else's style and whatnot. And people do that every day with everything all the time. That's totally normal. The problem, of course, comes when people take it too far and you copy someone else's work and then go to make money off of it or whatever without any sort of acknowledgement to the previous person or anything. Like, don't do that. It's just a jerk move, especially with people that are not freaking millionaires. Like, even if they do make a lot of money, it's still a jerk move. But especially with artists that are just artists and are just trying to get by and you know, trying to do their craft, it's really akin to stealing from them if you do that, because especially if your copy is very good, which, you know, if you've been working at it for a while, it may be, yeah, if your copy is really good, then it's going to take business from them, and that's just not cool. So don't do that. Don't be that person. Yeah, so here we are at the end, I guess, already, and I managed to yammer on for a bit about stuff, so I hope it was a little bit enjoyable, and I will catch you on the other side.